Hello and welcome to Streamers and Punches, the podcast from Sound Ocean TV that looks at current events and new releases in the world of film music. My name is Bill Witham.
I'm Kevin Wilt.
And you'll notice my surroundings are different because this week I'm actually joining our producer Dave McDonald in Orlando, Florida. That's Dave's hand trying to make it into the video. There it is. That's proof that there are actually two people in the room. So anyway, today's episode going to be a lot of headlines, a lot of news has been coming out lately, some rumors, some exciting rumors, and we're going to talk about those in just a moment. And we'll be looking at what we've been listening to this week. First up, we want to just touch base or update from last time we talked about the Oscars, especially the nominations for both song and for best score. So congratulations to Michael Dana for Life of Pi, as well for Adele for winning the title song for Skyfall. So congratulations to both of them. And I don't remember, what did we predict, Kevin? We didn't predict Life of Pi, did we?
I don't think either of us, well, neither of us picked Life of Pi. I don't think we really made predictions, but neither of us picked Life of Pi.
Mm-hmm.
I think we both kind of picked Skyfall for best song. That one seemed, I think, fairly obvious.
Yeah. And maybe a seniority award for John Williams, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that didn't work out.
Yeah, we also talked about the Thomas Newman score for Skyfall, because he's been nominated so many times and hasn't won.
And it is a James Bond movie, which at least, you know, it's like got some notoriety and some brand name to it. But
right.
All right, so none of those worked for us. So anyway, congratulations to Michael Dana and Adele. It did work for Adele, but not for Michael Dana.
That's true.
Okay.
I'm sure she got the Streamers and Punches bump.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, Kevin, you found some John Williams articles?
Yeah, actually not too long, either right before or after the Oscars, a couple of weeks ago, John Williams was conducting a concert out in California, and before playing the theme from Star Wars, he mentioned to the audience, he talked a little bit about the new movies, and he's kind of explained that he was hoping to gear up for those new movies in a year or two when they're ready to be scored. So it sounds like he wants to return to do the next trilogy. You know, obviously it's not entirely up to him, but I guess it's kind of good to know that he's interested.
Yeah.
The exact quote that he said, it almost sounded like he said something about working with George Lucas again. So maybe it's possible that he doesn't realize that George Lucas isn't directing these movies, and who knows how that may fit into the equation. But it's interesting to hear, you know, this is something we've speculated on for a couple of months now, whether John Williams would come back, and this is kind of the first bit of information from him anyway. And speaking of John Williams, it was just announced a couple of days ago, I believe, that John Williams will be conducting the Baltimore Symphony on June 4th in a concert honoring Steven Spielberg. So
another one. Gosh.
Mostly music from Spielberg films, of course, that John Williams wrote. It's interesting. A lot of times it seems like there are either concerts honoring Steven Spielberg where John Williams conducts Steven Spielberg movie music, or there are concerts honoring John Williams where Steven Spielberg shows up and is like the host of the concert while John Williams conducts John Williams movie music. This seems to be one of those, I guess.
It's just like a pendulum of self-congratulatory events back and forth.
It's just one giant bro hug.
Yeah, we're joking about it, but we like it. Yeah, sure. Okay. So also in the news, a couple items for Michael Giacchino. If for any listeners that are big fans of him, you know one of his films in the last couple of years was Speed Racer, and he he created the score for the Wachowskis who directed the film. So he's going to be working again with them for their next film called Jupiter Ascending. So check out the news. We'll be posting stuff as things develop for Jupiter Ascending. But also the Star Trek Into Darkness, which is the Star Trek sequel to the J.J. Abrams movie from 2009, is going to be coming out this May. And Giacchino has just tweeted that the recording sessions have begun. So that's kind of exciting. And I always, you know, I'm starting to pay attention more to when directors or composers are tweeting, because you get to see pictures from inside the studio. A year ago, when Spider-Man was going to come out, Mark Webb, the director, the Amazing Spider-Man, Mark Webb tweeted a picture of the first page of score to James Horner's end credits suite. So that was kind of cool. It looked like Sibelius or something, but Sibelius software, notation software. But it was kind of exciting to see little teases of the production. So yeah, very cool.
It's they got to feed the internet beast. That's how it works.
Exactly, because inquiring minds want to know.
Right.
Alexander Desplat just recently hired to score a new George Clooney film, The Monuments Men, which I think that's going to be like those Nicolas Cage movies, right? The ones where he National Treasure. Is that what that's? Isn't that
I have
what?
no idea.
No, okay, that's a joke. That's a joke. It's not. No, it's there. There is a similarity in that I believe the plot's going to involve them going into, I think, Germany during World War II to try to protect works from the Nazis so they don't blow everything up. But it sounds exciting. It's got a great cast, and looking forward to it. So congrats, Alexander, getting that gig.
And it seems, and I mean, those two kind of go back a ways now. Desplat, of course, just scored Argo, which George Clooney was a producer on, and he also scored Ides of March, which George Clooney directed like a year or two ago. So that seems like a pretty expected pairing, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. Now, do you know anything about this upcoming movie, Oblivion, Kevin?
This is the new Tom Cruise movie?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
That's the extent of my knowledge.
Okay. All right. So let me fill you in.
Okay.
It's a Tom Cruise movie.
Okay.
It has a science fiction element to it. There's a lot of special effects. And, really, I've only seen the trailer. That's all I know, too. No, okay, so I'm being facetious. It's directed by the same director of Tron Legacy, which I believe is Joseph Kosinski. I should check on that. But, okay, so same director of Tron Legacy. And I was joking that perhaps he has a real fetish towards electronic music, but he worked with Daft Punk for the Disney film, the Tron Legacy. And for this, he's working with M83 is the group's name. So there's a track from the score called Star Waves, and it's been posted online at M83's SoundCloud account. So you can actually click on it. We've got the link. Rolling Stone we'll give credit to them. They're the first ones to post it. And so you can actually go to our link, which hooks you into the Rolling Stone link, and see and hear the track Star Waves from the upcoming score to Oblivion. So it's kind of cool. Very electronic. I thought it was kind of similar to some textures and some sounds in the Tron Legacy score. But I mean, it was like a good use of like color and electronics, kind of like turning the different synths into sort of its own orchestra. But clearly, this is music for getting out of the way and still having a kind of like epic feel in the back. So it was like, well, okay, could it do more? Maybe, but maybe it's not the right moment of the film for it to do more. But anyway, that's just one cue. Okay. And then, of course, a lot about the Sherlock composers. That would be David Arnold for the main title, and then Michael Price for the music for each episode, and which, of course, by the way, I saw your link that you put on Facebook recently.
Yeah, there was an exciting kind of announcement yesterday that the third series of Sherlock starts production this week, but Benedict Cumberbatch also mentioned that they are lined up to do a fourth series, which up until this point, most people assumed that the third would be the last, because of course, Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman are two big movie stars now, so trying to get them to do TV would be really difficult. But he sort of accidentally let the cat out of the bag that they're going to be doing a fourth series too.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. And we have talked about the score to the Sherlock series on our show before. So I think it's cool that score or those scores are getting some recognition.
I feel somehow responsible that the attention we've given to the Sherlock music has somehow helped give it some notoriety.
I'm sure that
in certain circles.
Most to do with it, yeah.
Yeah, I want a cut of their award. No, but it's nice. I mean, they just recently won an award. That's what I was leading up to by mentioning the Sherlock. Not just that they're filming the third season now. They're going to be working on a fourth season, I guess, as we talked about in the near future. But there are these awards now. Music, it's music and sound. It looks like music plus sound. But the ceremony just in February just happened, and it's sort of it's just a new thing. And it gives notoriety to film and music and sound production and post-production and scoring. So very cool that this is there as kind of a like an offshoot award ceremony. But anyway, Michael Price and David Arnold were called out for their excellent work on Sherlock. So congrats to them. Very cool. Yeah. Anything else interesting you've heard?
No, I think that about does it for me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
what have you been listening to lately, Bill?
What? Well, I was going to ask you, but okay, I'll go first.
No,
you go first because I've got quite a few things to go through. So,
a couple of new, I call them new CDs. They are new releases that have come out in the past month that I've been listening to. Both of them are re-releases. They're not remastered or anything. They're just re-releases of existing soundtracks. One of them is the classic 1944 score by David Raxon called Laura, and really any film music fan is probably familiar with this, and particularly the main title tune.
Yeah.
Having listened to the CD, listening to that music in soundtrack form as opposed to seeing it on the film, you get a lot of that tune. It's really all over the place. The last track on the CD is about a 20-minute track, just called Theme and Variations on the Theme from Laura. So it's a 20-minute set of variations, which is kind of a cool idea, but really the whole CD is essentially a set of variations because so many of the cues just use that same theme.
It's like what most scores end up being, as a theme and variations on the... Well, now, is that theme and variations, is that a concert piece?
That's kind of how I understood it. It certainly was not part of the score. It's too long a piece of music to be certainly a cue. Like I said, it's almost about 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
Several of the variations are essentially in the style of certain cues, but again, just sort of assembled or butt-ended into one long piece. So it's a classic score to have and to listen to. It's a good one to know, but it is pretty monothematic. Just listening to the CD in one sitting. The other one I've been listening to, that one, the Laura score is released by Kreuzerland, by the way.
I think everybody should pick that up, and I might go for that as well. I mean, Laura is like a jazz standard now, and it's just the tune itself is, you have to know it if you're in any way involved in popular music and commercial music, and so it
was a very far-reaching tune.
Yeah. So definitely for anybody interested in classic film music and just music of our culture, pick up Laura, especially if it's newly available. Yeah.
And eventually, Johnny Mercer set the tune to lyrics, and Frank Sinatra made a recording, and there are a billion covers of the tune as well. All sorts of people that performed it. So yeah, it's worth checking out. The other one I've been listening to, again, another re-release. This one's from Perseverance Records. This is a release of John Williams' score to the late '80s film The Witches of Eastwick. It certainly falls into the category of kind of fun John Williams comedy type of score as opposed to action adventure score.
Very light.
It's nice. It's kind of in the same vein of Home Alone and maybe a little bit of Hook. It really, it's from the late '80s, so it sounds
Harry
a lot
Potter.
Like, Harry Potter a little bit as well. So it has a lot of the same types of things that his other scores from that time have. It's so if you have listened to Harry Potter or Hook or Home Alone or something, you won't hear a ton that's new in this score. But again, it's a really good display of John Williams' comedic writing, and it's, again, I think worth picking up just for that. So
yeah, for decades that one's been a big collector's item.
Yeah.
And I remember trying to find it, and I think eBay was like $100 or something like that, and it brings up that whole argument of, do you want it for the music, or are you just collecting it because it's a rare item? And when I remember when I got it, I was kind of like, it's okay. It's kind of, it's all right. And I'm not.
That was the important thing, right, Bill?
Yeah, I had it. Yeah, that was what was great. Yeah. It replaced the bootleg that I had before that. Yeah. No, it's there. I consider, like, his middle '80s was like he's just taking a huge break because he just finished the Star Wars trilogy, and he's 2/3 of the way through Indiana Jones, and then he does Space Camp, and he gets kicked off of, well, not kicked off, but Spielberg doesn't use him for The Color Purple because of Quincy Jones's involvement, and then he does that, The Witches of Eastwick. So it was really kind of Empire of the Sun. It was kind of light, and then it picked back up in '88 and '89.
Right?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Always was in there, which was kind of,
that was 89. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of regarded as sort of a flop for Spielberg and Williams, just all around, kind of.
Yeah.
This score kind of comes from that lull, and maybe you could call it a high point of that lull, but it's.
Yeah, but shoot, I can't remember who directed Witches of Eastwick, but it's not in any way connected to people that he's worked with before. I'm pretty sure. I need to check on the director, but
Okay.
But yeah. Anyway, all right, cool, yeah.
So what have you been listening to, Bill?
Sort of a weird group. It's been mostly like Netflix rentals. But I did see Side Effects, and it's been a while since I've seen that. I'm pretty sure I didn't talk about that on the last show.
I don't
But
think so.
for anybody that hasn't seen it, it's a great film. It's by Soderbergh, and in the past he's used, I want to say, Cliff Martinez for some of his films, or maybe the names are escaping me at the moment, but not Thomas Newman. And this one is scored by Thomas Newman, and there's some interesting stuff in there. Obviously, I'd like to talk more about the movie, but I don't want to because just the sheer amount of what's involved with the film, you have to see it. But Thomas Newman does provide an adequate score. I didn't think there was anything that sort of rose out of the norm, but it was very much a performance-driven film. So Thomas Newman is really keyed into that, and he always gets out of the way of the performances. So that was very cool. Dredd was an adaptation of Judge Dredd, and unfortunately, this was a movie that's not Marvel or DC, but it was a comic book film, and it either marketing-wise or some kind of publicity did not work for it. But for the film itself,
it just kind of disappeared, basically. It was released, but you wouldn't know it.
And it is R-rated for a good reason. But if you want something that's bold and true to its, like, it's like, this is Dredd. Dredd's violent, and the character is like this, and we're not gonna water it down. Like you're, like a purist of sorts, you would be very happy with the movie. And I found it to be a really good action film. It has a very very good style and a look to it and everything. But the score is kind of like a punk industrial, sort of distorted techno kind of approach, and it seems to be very appropriate for the film. So that was written by Paul Leonard Morgan, is the gentleman who scored Dredd. So a really appropriate job for that. And I've been watching this TV show called Jekyll on Netflix, which is created or written by Stephen Moffat, who's of course been doing the Doctor Who and the Sherlock show that we have mentioned maybe once or twice before on our podcast.
Maybe.
Maybe. And a scant offering of information about Sherlock. But no, it's a great show. And Debbie Wiseman created the score. And Haley, I want to say it's Haley Westenra is the singer. I always say Westerna, and I always think that's not correct. Westenra. Okay. And she's kind of like Charlotte Church. I sort of lump her into that group of classically trained singer who's sort of doing crossover. But she's sort of utilized quite a bit as a soloist on the score, and it really makes a lot of use out of a 4-note motive that's very creepy. And when you watch the show, it works very well on the show. And James Nesbitt is the lead actor, who is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, essentially. And he does a bang-up job. He's great. And the show itself is 6 episodes, and that's it. And so it doesn't take too much of your time. It takes half as much time as watching House of Cards. So there you have more reason to check out Jekyll. It's from '07, and it's a great little score. And then the last one is Layer Cake, which is a movie I've been wanting to see for a while because it's directed by Matthew Vaughn, who directed the X-Men, First Class, X-Men First Class, and just a lot of movies in general. This was one of his first ones.
This is the Daniel Craig movie, right?
It is. That was the other reason. It's Craig before James Bond, but Craig with lots of guns and lots of violence and action. And what's he like in a movie like this, where he's not wearing a tux and he doesn't have the lines to the James Bond? How is he in a film like this? It was cool. It was kind of like a crime caper movie, kind of a la Guy Ritchie. But the score was, interestingly, a combination of Lisa Gerrard and I don't know how to pronounce his name, Ilan Ishkiri, I want to say. And she is, of course, well known for working on Gladiator and then also the Ali movie with Will Smith. But then, and her vocals, of course, are I think one of her biggest contributions to the score, and she does have vocals throughout this score. But Ilan Ishkari, I noticed him with Stardust, which was also a Matthew Vaughn film. It's kind of a fairy tale with comedic elements, kind of like Princess Bride. Ishkari created the score for that, and that came later. So it was very functional, and it did have some nice vocals. So it was notable. I mean, throughout the movie, it wasn't just always in the background. So it was kind of cool. Nothing was really like, wow, that was lame. I mean, not that I try to just hate on these scores normally, but all the scores were or cool or integral to the film in some way. So yeah, pretty cool.
Okay.
One little thing of news that I saw recently, and it's kind of in the category of rumor, but I've been, of course, anyone watching the show knows I'm just a huge comic book fan, waiting for the Superman, the Man of Steel to come out this summer, with the score by Hans Zimmer. And we've mentioned in the past where Hans Zimmer has the photographs, again, like from the production aspect of it, like we're about ready to start recording or whatever else. Well, there was recently a quote from a guy who said, our firm does movie trailers, and we're cutting together, or we've made the third trailer, the third and final one that's going to come out, and it's going to have even more action. But then he's went a step further, and he said, and we've been given the entire score to use, so we have Hans Zimmer's music. And of course, I was very curious, and what's that going to mean? And he said, so there'll be a little bit of it in the trailer. I was kind of like, why don't you just take all of it and cut it together so that the whole 2.5 minutes is all Hans Zimmer? But I don't know if it's going to happen. And it was sort of like, I'm not sure if this guy really is who he says he is.
Okay. That would be interesting to hear if we get some of the Hans Zimmer score in the next trailer.
Yeah,
because we had mentioned, I think 1 or 2 shows ago, that the score is done. They've recorded the whole thing a while back.
Yeah.
So it's certainly available.
Yeah, it's all finished. Cool. I look forward to seeing or hearing what his solutions are for how do you tackle something iconic musically and make it work and make us not think, oh, I wish I would have just heard John Williams' music instead. Of course, that just may be me and you.
Probably.
I bet the 15-year-old boy seeing the movie. Sorry, what's that?
Said me and you more so than most people.
That's probably true. Yeah. So okay. Anything else you've been checking out?
No, that about covers it for me.
Okay. So one thing I definitely want to see soon is Oz. I've been hearing some roundabout positive comments on it. Not stellar, but enough that makes me think it would be a better experience than seeing the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland, which I think it's fairly getting a lot of comparisons to. Both Disney, both notable director of fantasy and action, large entertainment kind of venues, tentpole films, I should say, and lots of special effects and lots of stars. So I think it's a fair comparison, and for that reason, it seems to be faring a little bit better, and it certainly did really well in its opening weekend. So I don't know. What's your take on that? You want to see it?
I think, I'm going to go see it. My expectations aren't super high.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in the score and how the score fits with the film. We had mentioned a few shows ago that Danny Elfman was on that panel of film composers that was being interviewed, and he had mentioned that working on Oz being a little bit more of a free experience than he'd had in the last couple of films. So I think this score represents Danny Elfman writing the way Danny Elfman wants to write.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting score just from that perspective.
Yeah.
And from the little bit that I've heard of it, that's exactly what it sounds like. It really has kind of a classic late 90s Danny Elfman kind of thing going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, I definitely want to see it for the same reasons. Not having to be constrained by the temp score would seem to get a little more of a natural approach from him. So yeah, I definitely want to check it out. They have posted a few audio excerpts online, so we will share a little bit of a tease with the audience as we exit the show today. So, all right. Well, speaking of, So I think that's going to do it for this episode of Streamers and Punches. You can listen to us on soundnotion.tv/SAP, where you can subscribe to the show, leave comments, or find links to the music that we spoke about. You can also subscribe to the show through iTunes. So my name is Bill Witham.
And I'm Kevin Wilt.
And on our way out, we'll play the first 30 seconds or so from the main title to The Great and Powerful Oz, scored by Danny Elfman.